On this Thursday night, Russia fires a missile into a Ukrainian grocery store and cafe. The casualties of this cold-blooded attack as Western leaders try to shore up support for Ukraine. Ottawa's plan to bring down grocery prices.
Food for us is a luxury.
We reality check what's being promised. The heat was on. The alarm sounded over the world's hottest ever September. And what happens in Vegas started in Canada.
It was like nothing I've ever seen before.
Shedding light on Montreal's connection to this technological marvel.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. If the world needed reminding about Russia's war in Ukraine, it got it today. A Russian missile strike killed at least 51 people, including a child, in a village near an eastern Ukrainian city. People had gathered there for a memorial service when it happened. A warning, the images are disturbing. The gruesome task of covering bodies followed hours of searching for survivors. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy condemned the attack as a deliberate act of terrorism. He is in Spain talking to European leaders about strengthening Ukraine's air defenses. Just yesterday, the American President Joe Biden expressed concern the political chaos in Congress could disrupt the flow of American aid to Ukraine. Crystal Goomansingh has our top story on one of the deadliest Russian attacks since the start of its full-scale invasion.
This shop and cafe in Hroza were busy, filled with community members attending a funeral. A soldier was being buried, says this woman who heard about the strike and rushed to the scene knowing her mother was there. Residents and emergency workers combed the rubble. Carnage and corpses, hallmarks of the Russian invasion. Speaking at an event in Sochi, Russia, President Vladimir Putin described it as a so-called war and said it was not started by Russia, but the West's need for an enemy, and said Europe was supporting Ukraine to the detriment of its economy, fanning the flames of war fatigue. European leaders meeting in Spain put on a united front with Ukraine.
Citizens, children of every country deserve to be secure and everywhere in the country, not just in the subway, not just in the shelters, underground, but everywhere.
A young boy was one of the victims of the strike on Hroza. It's now one of the deadliest single attacks on civilian infrastructure since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion. What happens next largely depends on the United States. Democrats and some Republicans are fighting over the money spent supporting Ukraine. American President Joe Biden says he's planning to give a major speech on the issue. And the White House press secretary used the tragedy to justify its position.
We have to continue to support the people of Ukraine because this is the horrifying nature that they live in every day.
3 days of mourning was announced by the governor of the Kharkiv Oblast. Families of loved ones who are attending the funeral are now having to organize burials. Donna?
Crystal Goomansingh in London. Thanks, Crystal. A big reversal from the American President Joe Biden on his promise to never build another foot of border wall between Mexico and the United States. Facing a surge of migrants into the U.S., Biden has backed away from that hard line. Today, he waived a number of federal regulations allowing construction of the border wall to resume, the wall former President Donald Trump made a cornerstone of his presidency. Joel Senick explains why Biden did it and the political challenge the migrant crisis poses.
The constant stream of migrants will soon face more barriers when crossing from Mexico to the U.S. President Joe Biden's administration is waiving over 24 federal laws to expand the border wall in Texas, even as officials speak out against their own move.
We believe that there are better, effective ways of moving forward to secure our border and security.
The new construction could add over 30 kilometers to the border wall. The president says the money was allocated during Donald Trump's term in 2019 and had to be spent now.
There's nothing under the law other than they have to use the money for what it was appropriated. I can't stop that.
The move flies in the face of the president's past words. As a candidate, he said his administration would not construct another foot of border wall. Former President Trump speaking out on social media, writing in part, "Will Joe Biden apologize to me and America for taking so long to get moving?" And in Mexico, President Andrés Manuel López Obrador calling the move a step backwards that doesn't solve the migrant crisis.
Eso no resuelve el problema.
And the problem is a stark one, felt across the U.S. Mexican officials say just last week, 10,000 people a day reached the border. Those who make it across are flooding cities at a crushing pace, stretching resources to the limit. From Denver,
when it's not 9 buses a day, it's 4 buses a day, it's 5 buses a day,
to Chicago.
We're not here saying we're against individual people who cross this border. We're mad at our government for putting them against us.
A former top U.S. immigration official says a resolution will take more than physical barriers.
Even after we catch you and even after we process you, we end up having to release you because we can't get a court date for you for a judge to hear your claim.
Immigration will likely be a major campaign issue in the upcoming race for the White House. And while President Biden says he does not believe border walls work, the move to build more could bring more criticism from his left-leaning base opposed to more construction. Donna?
Joel Senick in Washington, thanks. An unprecedented espionage trial is underway in an Ottawa courtroom. Cameron Ortis, who was once a high-ranking RCMP intelligence official, is facing up to 14 years in prison, accused of breaching national security. When he was arrested, he was a rising star in the force and had access to some of Canada's most closely guarded information. The Crown alleges he tried to sell that information to criminals. Turia Isri explains what evidence the prosecution is laying out.
The case against Cameron Ortis revolves around a trove of secret emails now uncovered.
Can you explain the emails that were presented today, the email correspondence?
I'm not going to make any comments now.
The ex-RCMP intelligence director left an Ottawa courtroom with his lawyer, who would not answer when asked about the alleged correspondence between Ortis and Vincent Ramos, a convicted criminal.
That's one thing that really makes this striking. And there's a lot of email communications there. On the face of it, looks very damning.
Ramos ran a Vancouver-based company called Phantom Secure, selling untraceable phones to organized criminals. The Crown alleges Ortis reached out to him in 2015 with a business proposition. In the agreed statement of facts, someone under the alias See All Things sent this email. Mr. Ramos, you do not know me. I have information I am confident you will find very valuable. At the time, Ramos was the target of Canadian and American police. The cost for this material relating is $20,000 Canadian, in cash to be hand-delivered at a pre-arranged time and place. The FBI arrested Ramos in Las Vegas in 2018. His emails eventually led RCMP to one of their own. Ortis was taken into custody in 2019. His defense team will argue Ortis had the authority to release the information allegedly sent to Ramos, but it has yet to present evidence as to why.
Mr. Ortis will get his opportunity when he gets to testify, and it'll all be explained.
This national security and intelligence expert says explaining that to a jury won't be easy.
They'll have to be able to provide evidence that someone high up in the RCMP proposed this mission.
Ortis is expected to take the stand in his own defense. He's also chosen a jury instead of a judge-only trial, which national security experts say is especially rare. Turia Isri, Global News, Ottawa.
In Toronto, the families of 2 women who were murdered almost 40 years ago are finally getting justice. Their killer had for decades eluded police. Thanks to DNA evidence, he was arrested earlier this year, and today he pleaded guilty. Back in 1983, Susan Tice, a social worker and mother of 4, and Erin Gilmore, an aspiring fashion designer, were found dead in their homes within months of each other. Both had been sexually assaulted and stabbed to death. Global's crime specialist Catherine McDonald reports.
Joseph Sutherland admitted in a courtroom Tuesday that 40 years ago he killed 2 women 4 kilometers and 4 months apart. A huge relief for the family of one of the victims who hugged police outside court after Sutherland pleaded guilty to 2 counts of second-degree murder.
It's been an amazing end to what I think was, basically finding a lottery ticket in the street.
According to the agreed statement of facts on August 16, 1983, 45-year-old Susan Tice was alone at home on Gray Street when Sutherland broke in, attacked her in her bedroom, and sexually assaulted her through forced intercourse before stabbing her 13 times with a knife. On December 20th of that same year, Sutherland broke into Aaron Gilmore's second-floor apartment on Hazelton Avenue after finding a door ajar. The 22-year-old was found lying on her bed, her mouth gagged, her hands bound behind her back, a belt around her neck. She'd also been sexually assaulted and stabbed twice in the chest. Police announced in the year 2000 that both women had been murdered by the same man because the DNA profile from the semen samples matched. But it wasn't until 2021 that the Sutherland family, and in particular 5 brothers, were identified as persons of interest thanks to genetic genealogy. According to the facts, after the elimination of 4 out of the 5 Sutherland brothers as the source of the crime scene DNA, a DNA warrant was executed by the Toronto Police, who attended Moosonee and took blood samples from Joseph Sutherland. Court heard Sutherland returned home and contacted a friend, a retired OPP officer, and confessed to committing the 2 murders.
That retired OPP officer immediately contacted the bosses from the OPP, who were in contact with us, and we were able to arrange in short order Mr. Sutherland turning himself in.
Sutherland sat quietly in court Thursday. He faces life in prison with no chance of parole between 10 and 25 years.
I'll never bring Aaron back, or Susan Tice for that matter, but it's also at the same time, it's a little bit of closure for both of us and the rest of our family and Aaron's friends, knowing that, you know, this guy's being put away for hopefully a long time.
A sentencing hearing has been scheduled for December, at which time victim impact statements will be heard, and Sutherland himself will be given a chance to address the court. Catherine McDonald, Global News.
We learned a little more today about what progress is being made on the federal government's promise to bring down soaring food prices. A month ago, senior cabinet ministers met with the heads of Canada's 5 largest grocery store chains. They were asked to present a plan about how they intend to stabilize prices, and the deadline was Thanksgiving. As Canadians prepare to cook their turkeys, Mackenzie Gray looks at what people can expect.
The Liberals sold it as their plan to save Thanksgiving from high grocery prices.
Canadians will be able to see rollout of actions such as discount across a basket of food products, price freezes, and price matching campaigns, to name a few.
Those measures promised by Canada's 5 biggest grocery stores to stabilize rocketing food costs, but price matching and freezes
That's why Loblaws weekly specials are on everyday items.
have been in Canadian grocery ads for decades. The minister responsible couldn't give any specifics on how this is different, but believes the grocer's plan is already working.
I've been looking at some flyers this morning, and you already see action in terms of different grocers adjusting ahead, obviously, of Thanksgiving.
But if you look at the old flyers, there's been no change with Canada's largest grocery chain on a Thanksgiving staple. Turkey, listed at $2.49 a pound in October 2022 at Loblaws. Today, it's going for the exact same price. But that might be a steal compared to what independent grocers can sell for. This turkey, nearly 4 times the price at $77. High prices the manager of Farmers Pick in Ottawa blames on fuel costs and supply chain issues.
Eggs are like triple what they were 3 years ago. We've had, I think, 7 or 8 price increases in 12 months, where generally there's 1 a year.
$4 for $5. Breakfast.
Their persistent price pressures leaving many Canadians to make difficult choices.
Once you are alone, then with a small pension that has to last you the month. Yep. Not very easy. Food for us is a luxury.
The biggest concrete measure the industry minister announced, a new task force to check grocery prices monthly to see if costs are actually coming down. And if they don't, Donna, the finance minister threatens special taxes on the grocery chains.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa, thank you. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was in Vaughan, Ontario today. That city is the second to sign a deal with the federal government for the National Housing Accelerator Fund, intended to help fast-track the building of new homes.
We all know that if we want people to succeed, we need more homes in Vaughan, we need more homes across the GTA, we need more homes right across the country.
The city will get over $59 million to assist in the construction of over 1,700 homes in the next 3 years. Apartments, affordable housing, and high-density developments near transit will get priority. It is a fraction of what's needed to combat Canada's housing crisis. According to the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, the country will need 3.5 million additional units by 2030 to restore affordability. Tragedy strikes a celebration in Syria. Coming up, the attack on a military college graduation ceremony. In Syria, a drone strike has killed more than 100 people who were taking part in a graduation ceremony at a military academy. It happened in the western city of Homs. Both civilians and military personnel were killed. Dozens of others were wounded. It has been more than 12 years since civil war broke out in Syria. Hundreds of thousands of people have died. Millions are displaced. No group has claimed responsibility for this attack. At least 18 people have been killed and nearly 100 others are missing after heavy rains caused a Himalayan glacial lake in northeast India to burst its banks. The raging water washed away 14 bridges, making rescuing those caught in the floodwaters more difficult. 98 people are missing. At least 20 are believed to be Army personnel. The region has received over 101 millimeters of rain since the start of this month, more than double normal levels. Too hot to handle ahead, why scientists are worried after the world's extraordinarily warm September. Another heat record has been set on Earth, and this one is by the largest margin yet. The EU Climate Service says the global average surface air temperature reached 16.38 degrees in September. That's 0.93 degrees above the average September temperatures for the past 32 years, and half a degree hotter than the previous record set in 2020. The September numbers follow the hottest summer since records began, a 4-month stretch that's put 2023 firmly on track to be the hottest year in history. Eric Sorensen explains.
The leaves are changing, the seasonal reminders are out, and the sun is at the low angle you expect in October. But something's not normal.
It's September, and late now it's October, and it's summer.
Yes, in this country, going shirtless at the beach in October seems great, but
it's possible that this is not good for the planet.
Indeed, the planet's temperature last month was an astounding 1.8 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. The reason? Persistent global warming with an extra injection of heat this year from the Pacific El Nino current.
We have been warming the Earth's temperature yearly at this point. So when El Nino occurs, we're augmenting that heat due to climate change. But what's very different about September is that those records were just shattered.
The EU's Copernicus satellite and land and ocean and atmospheric data is increasingly alarming. Here are the Earth's surface air temperature comparisons for the last 83 Septembers. For almost 70 years, the anomalies relative to the period 1991 to 2020 were cooler than average. But look at the last 15 years. Every September has been warmer than average, close to half a degree. And this September, almost a full degree Celsius above that average. Canada is already seeing the extreme impacts of climate change: Atlantic hurricanes, wildfires from east to west, and melting Arctic ice. We're simply not doing enough, say experts, to bring down carbon emissions, governments, the fossil fuel industry, and all of us as individuals.
This is what the data is telling us. It's telling us that we need to be doing so much more, and we need to be doing it faster. There has to be regulations. We need to have a big shift.
It means a total change of paradigm, changing the way we work, the way we live. That's the only way we can really, really stop this.
So we can and should enjoy the mild autumn. But climate scientists point out that a warm, dry fall and winter could bring the same conditions next year that saw disasters this year. In short, this is not normal and not necessarily a good omen for the future. Eric Sorensen, Global News, Toronto.
Commander is no longer living at the White House. The presidential pup bit a Secret Service agent last week, and he has a habit of it. In the last year, the 2-year-old German Shepherd has nipped at least 11 people. A spokesperson for First Lady Jill Biden says the Bidens care deeply about the safety of those who work at the White House. There is no word on where Commander is living now. Next, the Canadian connection to the brightest attraction in Las Vegas. The newest concert venue in Las Vegas has quickly become one of the most photographed attractions in the world. The Sphere towers over other structures in Las Vegas, and it intertwines culture, technology, science, and art. What you may not know about the $3 billion building is the contribution made by a Canadian company. Mike Armstrong explains.
They are kind of impressive to see close up. Dozens of light pucks, each with 48 LEDs, flashing in the Montreal factory where they were built. But what they do with 1.2 million pucks is, well, eye-popping.
During the last 5 years of our life, it is what we've been focusing on, and the results are astonishing.
Jonathan Labbé is the co-CEO of Seiko Technologies. The Canadian company was hired at first to do the outside of the Sphere and then later the inside. It's a different sort of technology, boards instead of pucks, but just as impressive. The venue opened officially with a U2 show Friday, making use of a video screen with 170 million pixels. It's the highest resolution of any screen of any sort in the world. The Seiko team knew what their screen could do and say they were still shocked.
Yeah, I'm going to say it was mind-blowing.
The idea came from a sketch by the executive director of Madison Square Garden, James Dolan. He also owns the New York Knicks and New York Rangers. He and his team wanted to create a new entertainment venue in Vegas. They looked at different shapes, a pyramid, a box, even a muffin, before settling on the Sphere.
This is experiential. It's something that people haven't ever felt before, and I believe they're going to love it.
The Sphere is set to premiere a new movie Friday. Postcard from Earth is directed by Darren Aronofsky. Every image was shot specifically for the round format.
Not only did we create the screen for MSG, but MSG then had to create a special camera system. So innovation all around.
Aronofsky's movie is part sci-fi, part nature documentary. It's going to run for a year, but the years to come will be interesting. It's hard not to wonder what artists will do with the Sphere and what other cities might want their own. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Something else, and that is Global National for this Thursday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada is Victoria, BC, which, according to readers of Condé Nast Traveler magazine, is the best small city in the world, largely because the city, it says, embraces adventure. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.